We had three presentations, and one was, of course, started by Mr. Anurag from Wipro Econergy, which gave an overview about energy efficiency, the business potential, the opportunities. Then from Mr. James Thompson of Deloitte, which was again about efficiency in electricity, and some flavor of the smart grids. And then, of course, Dr. Satish, more focused on the buildings, as he has done some original work on the buildings, the building standards, efficiency, and then the norms and all those things. So we have come to an end of course, the presentations. And from one learning for me is that the benefit of having a vested interest with the moderator to finish in time ensures the performance is very good. This perhaps could also, be utilized in developing business models. How do we generate get this vested interest into a business model? So things balance out. Thank you very much. And now it is open for questions. We have 17.5 minutes, and we will have a protocol for that. So name, the organization, where are you from, your question, and if you have any particular choice of the person whom you would like to answer, you can indicate that. Otherwise, you leave it to me. Yeah. You.
My name is Sridhar. I'm from Texas Instruments. With the question, probably anybody could, the answer anybody could give me. With the transmission and distribution losses between 25 and 30%, and with the protocol of the power line communication that we have, which is probably a well understood protocol as such, but implementation wise, I'm not sure where it is. How can we use a power line communication for effective grid management, and where do you think the semiconductor industry could actually chip in with newer solutions to make this easier?
James, would you like to answer this? Whatever answer you give, I will supplement it by the Indian context. Okay.
Yeah, so let me, probably one of the biggest issues, and we didn't get into a lot of detail, but on the transmission side in particular, there's a lot of deep technology work being done with phaser measurement units and other ways to actually make sure that that line loss that exists today, which again is much higher than it has to be. There's a lot of efficiency to be gained in just doing better job delivering and managing the electricity we're already producing. So from that standpoint, I think semiconductor usage with phaser measurement units and those types of synchrophaser projects, which allow you to synchronize your system and the efficiency of your system, is exactly the type on the T&D side, or mainly on the transmission side, where I think that there's definitely a need and does lend itself to those types of technologies. The challenge has been with power line carrier technologies on the distribution side down to the home. Those traditionally were used for a lot of I'd say more basic functionality around meter reading and some of the basic theft alert type information that you could get. The issues with the increased bandwidth requirements that some of these home automation systems are using, that's a challenge for the type of signaling that you have if you're using PLC on the low voltage side into the home, right, on the distribution side of the network. So it's a physics challenge for using that bandwidth available, which is very small bandwidth. Essentially, when you do the zero crossing, you have a tiny bit of data available there. It doesn't lend itself to high communication back and forth on a real-time basis. At least that's what I'm finding in most of the clients I've talked to in Europe, South Africa, and around North America. So I don't.
Thank you. PLC is as he mentioned, phaser management unit is one which immediately comes to mind, and Power Grid Corporation of India, which is our CTU, is implementing a project on that, and with pretty good results. However, as James said, the challenge actually lies on the distribution side. Our losses are largely on the distribution side, actually, not on the transmission side. The percentage terms, it looks good, but it is not. And that's the distinction. That's why I said, whatever answer James gives, I'm going to supplement it from the side. The second problem with implementation of PLC in Indian context, James said physics, and I would say physical, is the physical state of the distribution infrastructure, which is not very amenable for the PLC carrier signals to be communicated. And the confidence levels of communication are very, very poor. So we always recommended when we were making projects in the APDRP, which I presume you are familiar, I won't go into at all that, to always have a mix of the communication technologies. Never rely on PLC alone, because of the state of the distribution infrastructure.
This query is for you, we've been discussing, us being, well, fortunately and proudly being the first fab, which is actually soon starting to commence manufacturing LEDs in India, growing the crystal, of course. We tried to encourage ESCO business, which your department is pushing quite well. Energy saving company, energy servicing company business, whereby the investment comes from the private sector, while the I'm talking about energy servicing company, using LEDs as a light source. So what we've realized is that since LEDs as of now are quite expensive, the upfront capital cost, there is in one of the presentations, I think Mr. Anurag's, he had very lucidly demonstrated that for every 1 watt of power saved, we are largely kind of saving at large about 3 watts. Am I right? So something like 1:3.1. When we actually go out and talk to distribution companies or public lighting organizations, that's municipalities, only 1:1 is talked about, because that is physically what they save. Now, the other 2 are actually lost somewhere on the way. Now, if that 1 watt is saved, how could the energy servicing companies, which could actually go ahead and implement a lot of smart networking, how could they get this benefit? Could you really look at something like like carbon certificate, something like energy saving certificate, which then could be created into one could create a market of energy saving certificate, making it mandatory for organizations who don't abide by these rules of energy efficiency. So create a market for these 2 watts which are lost, but the energy servicing company can take no advantage of it, simply because the municipal corporation says it's simple. Look, I'm paying $1, or say I'm paying for 1 watt. If I'm saving 1 watt, I can share this advantage, financial advantage with you, but then we can talk of 1 watt, because 2 watts is lost somewhere on the way.
So LED today, LED conversion is not yielding to a business case analysis at today's price points. Well, that's a fact actually. And what we have done, your point was also very apt, that the savings which are accounted for while calculating the paybacks and things like that is one which are visible let's say at best to the utilities, and in the chain of losses which Mr. Anurag showed, which are at various points. Now all the points we are not capturing as of now, which actually in economics is known as economic loss as opposed to financial loss. I mean, that's the only difference actually. But what we have done from our side about the carbon certificates, which we had, as you said, we have done for CFLs for the household sector. We have not done for the LED till now. I am not very sure about such opportunity now exists, because post 2012 we are not very sure about Kyoto Protocol, and by the time you actually get these agreements done, it takes about 1 year at least, 1 to 1.5 years. And we are the only ones in the country actually who have done it, Bureau of Energy, which nobody else has been able to successfully do it, also because of very stringent M&V requirements. Now, what do we do actually? So what we have done for LED, I think, have you noticed it, that we have issued a national lighting code? Okay. And that is test out the standards and norms for LED. We are planning to have a workshop where we are going to have people around and then let us see how do we get this manufacturing done in at a large scale. Try to build a business case for building down the manufacturing of LED to Indian price points. Now, how do we do that without direct subsidy kind of thing, because that's not the way we would like to work actually. How to create a favorable environment or the models which we can do to capture these or how do we derive the value which is distributed over various intermediaries in the chain. That model we would like to work on it. That's the challenge, and I agree with you. What we are planning to do is to very shortly have a national conclave on that. And if you have any thoughts on that, you can tell us. We are thinking. I mean, that's the only answer I can give you. Okay.
If at all we get these 2 watts into the game,
Yeah.
the whole game changes.
Sure, I agree with you. Yeah, there was some hand from there. Yeah, please.
My name is Vikram Labhe. I'm from PMC Sierra. My question is to Mr. Anurag Srivastava from Wipro. So you shared a slide on energy efficiency potential, which shows about 32% is useful and rest is losses. Is there any benchmarking done of such statistics for developed countries, and is there something we can learn from them?
Yes, I think the developed countries have a different distribution, as I said, on the transmission and distribution, and within utilities, it is a different figure. But onto the consumer side, if you look at, I think situation is same. So there's not much of the bad, disadvantage in India with respect to the enterprise users or residential consumer. That challenge is same. The transmission and distribution losses are at a much lower thing, and as Kapil was trying to mention, that we have just physics plus physical in our country on this distribution side. But just relating to the last question on that there is a scope of completing a closed loop feedback system, which the PLC system has not fully deployed in terms of the analytics of the information, tying up with the downstream value chain. There is a huge amount of innovation that is possible to bring that 27% down to global development, countries or developed countries level of performance. So I think there's a huge potential there with the technology in India. And I think the most important aspect, and I always kept on thanking BE to coming into existence, is that I think there is an unbundling of a new opportunity here for the semiconductor industry, particularly in India. There's a complete new economics evolving here. If we are able to tap into that, there's a significant value, which on all these factors, you will surpass probably even international standards. That potential exists. Taking the example of utility side, and I'll take the example not from an electrical utility. If you take Reliance, Hajira plant of refinery, yes, it is running at the world's best benchmark. There are only 2 refineries which are running best in the world with a figure of 65 performance. Rest of the utilities across the world are in a bad shape, right? But that means you can do in India the best performance. That's the only message I'll leave back. So as compared to developed countries, are we too way off? No. Is there a potential for us to create a best? I think yes. And the regulatory framework is going to allow this ecosystem to evolve, and that's what we are really seeing as a big opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Satish would also like to add to this. And after this, we'll have one question.